is a family-owned, Nebraska-based company comprised of 7 diverse brands. Chief, trusted, tested, true.
Good morning, everybody. It is the first official after harvest video. Is everyone feeling rested? I'm not quite. I think it's maybe going to take a little bit longer, but I'm definitely starting to get a little bit more organized after all of the craziness that was the last week of harvest. We are in the shop today with Grant and I's tractor. Right here we have the 8335R, and we have a problem that we need to fix. All harvest long, this tractor was hooked up to a grain cart, putting in a lot of hours. We pulled it in the shop after we got it unhooked and the grain cart parked in the big building. And we noticed a small leak starting to form underneath of it. It's not black, it's not engine oil, it's clear, and I can see exactly where it's coming from. It is actually hydraulic fluid. And I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal to fix, but I thought you guys could come along with me as I fix it. All right, you and I are going to roll under this together. See, here's all the front weights. Okay, keep coming back. Keep coming back. Right here. You see that? There's a plug right here. That is exactly where it's leaking from. Bigger bolts have been retrieved. Let's try out some of these. Now we're talking. Little too big. Aha! Perfect.
Careful, it might be spring loaded.
Is stuff gonna come out on me?
Probably hydraulic oil.
You wanna get me a bucket?
So here's the rebuild kit from John Deere, and we just had to pull the plug out quickly and slide the new O-ring on, but that is a drain down there, so it's probably gonna drain out quite a bit of fluid.
Yes, it feels like by the amount that is dripping on my hand just by holding the plug here, it feels like a lot's gonna come out. So we're gonna need some team effort here, Grant. And I think my strategy is I'm going to pull it out, take the O-ring off, you put the new ring on, I quickly come back.
Okay, let me open the package.
Okay.
Just as we suspected, there is the new O-ring, and here's the old one. You can see it failed right there.
Ready? Oh, gross. All right, let's get this thing tightened down. Got it. Oof. Thank you. Moving on to the back of the tractor, we don't have anything that needs to be fixed back here, which is good, but we do need to remove something. We're going to be taking off this big chunk right here and this big chunk right here. Don't worry, they're meant to be removed. I believe all we need to do is just loosen these. The odds of them coming right out, I would say slim to none. Might have to get hammers involved or something. I was not expecting to be able to do that. I was thinking these things would be on tight and not be able to come off. Wow, all right. Now I'm thinking I just pull them off. We'll see if that works. Oh. No way. That actually worked. Things never go this well. Another flawless removal. Excellent. Now, I'm sure you know why we're fixing our tractor, because we want it to be functional. But you might not know why I'm taking off those little sway block things on the back of the tractor. And that is because we have a new toy to play with on the farm. And that is an Orman TRA Tiller. What is this contraption, you might be asking? Let me tell you. If you're new to the channel, or maybe you're just kind of behind on the past couple summers, I farm in Nebraska, and all of my farms are irrigated with center pivots. Center pivots are fixed at one point, usually in the center of the field, and then has anywhere from 8 to 12 to 17 towers along it that move around in a circle or some kind of windshield wiper motion. This summer, we had a very, very dry summer in Nebraska, meaning that those pivots ran almost nonstop. I'm sure you guys probably got tired of watching Grant and I check on the engines, fix flat tires, gearboxes, knuckles, even just check on them. It was at least 2 or 3 times a day that we would go and check all of our pivots to make sure they were functioning properly. They leave behind massive ruts in the field. And if you remember from this harvest, we actually had to get a pivot unstuck from its giant mud hole mid-harvest season so you could move the pivot and harvest the crops underneath. Harvest is over. So our next step, the next thing we're thinking about doing before we get into the field again, is closing pivot tracks. You probably recognize this logo. We use a lot of tillage products from this company. Grant and I don't really do tillage, but Orman makes some really interesting products to do kind of one-pass tillage. So we use the root slicer from them, we use the cultivator from them, what we apply anhydrous is from them. They're a Nebraska-based company. We really like Orman. But let's talk about this TRA Tiller, because Grant and I have had our eye on this thing ever since it came out, because it's really different than any other pivot track closer we've used before. I know you guys just want to see this thing in action in the field, but I thought I'd run you through it while we're in the shop with no wind. I actually looked up the official names for all of the little spinny things under here, because that's usually what I just call them. But there's some really interesting technology that goes into this thing. The first piece of it is this thing right here. It's called a recessed bearing guide wheel. So this is what's going to rest in the actual pivot track and kind of show the rest of the machine where to go. Then next, we have these pieces right here. They call these sidewall busters. So the goal of these things is to take kind of that hump from the side of the pivot track and fill the hole with soil. Then next, we have this thing right here, a mid-frame track packer. This has some serious weight to it. So this is what's going to be packing in our soil that these threw into the hole. And then we have these things right here. These, what I feel like is kind of different from the rest of the pivot track closers I've seen, come out really wide. And so instead of getting just things closed kind of in a V behind the pivot track, we're getting wide management over here. And these can be, I believe, hydraulically controlled. But these are just going to help feather out the soil. And then back here, we have dual walking baskets. And then these can also be hydraulically controlled. And this is just going to create a level surface for us. So if there is any kind of hump or bump left over from these things, this is just going to smooth them out. We haven't even actually hooked it up yet, but most pivot track closers do not have this many hydraulic lines on them. The ones that I've seen are fairly simple, rigid machines, but this thing just has a lot of different ways that you can customize it and move it around. And we have a couple different spots where we've had some really big pivot tracks or even some holes. And in previous years, I feel like our pivot track closer has left kind of a hump in the field, which I feel like kind of defeats the purpose of even closing the tracks at all. The point here is to give us a smooth ride for all of the next field operations that we're going to be doing. But also, we're going to be sending the pivots around in the exact same tracks next year. And we don't want those ruts to get any deeper. We want them to start off with a nice level surface. This is what a pivot track looks like. I know it doesn't look like much. We clear out this debris here. It is a considerable amount of space left there. And that is bumpy in a tractor. All right, so we're out in the field. How do we actually close a pivot track? The first step is going to be backing up as close as we can get to the pivot. If you've never seen one before, this is what it looks like. And I'm going to get close. Obviously, I don't want to run into anything, but I'm trying to get as many of the pivot tracks as I can get. So I back up really close, and then I just use this hydraulic right here, and I'm going to put it all the way in the ground. See, it lowers just like that. And I have it lined up so those middle parts are just sitting right in the track. And I leveled it out. So I moved my number 5 hydraulic that controls the pitch of the 3-point so that it's nice and level and even. And then what I'm going to do is turn around, and you can see very obviously the pivot track here. Do you see the line on the hood and then that little silver thing? My goal is to keep the silver point in line with the pivot track all the way around the field. And that is going to mean bouncing over some rows. So I have this set down. Now what I'm going to do is idle up a little bit here, put the tractor in gear, turn my wheels, and start driving forward. It gets a little rough in here, but just for a little bit. Right now we're driving directly cross rows, but we're not going to be doing that for long. So I'm just trying to keep it as straight and in line with the track as I possibly can. And look at that. We're closing a pivot track. I've been going for probably about 400 yards. I was going at about 4.5 or 5 miles an hour. Let's get out and see a before and an after. It is unseasonably warm out here. It is so pleasant. I think the high is supposed to be 70 or 75 degrees Fahrenheit today. Look at that. Can you imagine hitting that with a tractor at 8 or 9 miles an hour? You'd be sent flying. All right, and here is our after. Trying to find where the track even used to be. So it's kind of broken up a little bit of tillage. Oh, here we go, look at that. That would be much better. As you can see, it's just really smoothed out. Nice even plane, perfect for a tractor to drive over. It's actually quite difficult to film and do this because there's a lot of steering involved, and because of how steep our ridges are, there is a lot of different things trying to take your tires in different directions. And the pivot track is always obviously extremely curved. So I'm trying to stay as straight and centered over that as possible while also just going directly diagonal the rows. But I think it's doing a really nice job, as you can see behind us. The next job I think that we're going to be doing is probably root slicing. That's the next thing, and that is a high speed job. So we want to have perfectly smooth ground for the tractor to go over. We're running it in some bean stubble now. Similar pivot track. Pretty impressive. jobs aren't quite as exciting as harvest, with all the hustle and bustle and lots of different activities always going on. But I do appreciate your faithful viewing and keeping up with what's going on our little farm here in Nebraska. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.